6 kilometers of rock stood between Hitler and total control of the British Empire. He almost had it. In the summer of 1940, Nazi Germany had a plan, Operation Felix, to capture Gibraltar, one small rock at the mouth of the Mediterranean. If it worked, Britain would lose the Mediterranean, lose its supply lines, lose its oil, and lose the war. It didn't happen. But it came down to a single 9-hour conversation. One man said no. This is what the map looks like if he had said yes. The Strait of Gibraltar, 14 kilometers wide, the only entrance to the Mediterranean from the open Atlantic Ocean. Sitting on the northern bank of that strait is Gibraltar. 6 kilometers of limestone, 426 meters high. A natural fortress controlling every ship that passes through. Britain had held this rock for over 200 years. And from it, the Royal Navy locked the Mediterranean's front door. Any fleet, any convoy, any troop transport moving between the Atlantic and the Mediterranean had to pass within range of Gibraltar's guns. In 1940, that means every British supply line to Malta, Egypt, and the Suez Canal runs through this gap. Every reinforcement to North Africa, every oil tanker from the Middle East, every connection between Britain and its empire east of Suez, all of it through 14 kilometers of water. Control Gibraltar and you control all of it. June 1940, France has fallen. Britain stands alone. Hitler sees the opportunity clearly. Operation Felix. German forces cross through Spain, neutral Spain. But Franco owes Hitler everything. Surround Gibraltar from the north and take it by siege. The British garrison, 7,000 soldiers, on a rock surrounded by sea on 3 sides and 65,000 German troops on the 4th. No reinforcement possible. No resupply under sustained air attack. Every military historian who has studied the plan reaches the same conclusion. If German forces reach Gibraltar, it falls. The only question is how long it takes. The estimate is 14 days. June 1940. 14 days. The Union Jack comes down. The swastika goes up. And now everything changes. The moment Gibraltar falls, German guns control the entire strait. 14 kilometers. Every British ship already inside the Mediterranean is trapped. No resupply from Britain. No reinforcements. No escape route. 3 things collapse immediately. First, Malta, the island Britain used as an airbase to attack Axis supply ships. In our timeline, heroic convoys kept it alive. In this timeline, the western entrance is sealed. Malta's supplies last 60 days. Then, the island goes dark. Second, Egypt, the base for the entire North African campaign. Reinforcements came through Gibraltar. Replacement tanks, aircraft, ammunition, all of it through Gibraltar. The last convoy arrived 3 weeks ago. What is in Egypt now is all there is. Third, the British Mediterranean Fleet, the most powerful naval force in the region, trapped, slowly running out of fuel and ammunition with no way to replace either. Not sunk, just made irrelevant by the closure of one 14-kilometer gap. The Mediterranean is no longer a battlefield. It is a German lake. North Africa, February 1941. Field Marshal Rommel and the Afrika Corps. In our timeline, Rommel nearly took Egypt. He was stopped, barely, at El Alamein, one of the closest run campaigns of the entire war. The margin between British survival and collapse in North Africa was supply. Malta-based aircraft attacked Rommel's Mediterranean supply lines so effectively that in some months, over 70% of his supplies never arrived. Rommel was a genius operating on empty. In this timeline, Malta is gone. The supply attacks stop. Rommel receives full fuel, full ammunition, full reinforcements. El Alamein does not. Horo falls. November 1941. The Suez Canal. December 1941. The entire North African coast, from Morocco to Egypt, is Axis-controlled. The Mediterranean, sealed at the west by Gibraltar and dominated along its southern shore, is completely enclosed. And now, Germany controls something even more valuable than North Africa. Germany controls what comes next. This is where the alternate history accelerates. 3 collapses, each one making the next worse. B-O-N-E. T-H-E-O-A-L. With Suez captured, German forces advance east into the Middle East. Iran. The oil fields at Mosul, Basra, Abadan. The fields that fuel the Royal Navy and fly the Royal Air Force. They fall before anyone can stop them. Britain can still receive American oil across the Atlantic, but its operational capacity drops by more than half. Ships can't refuel east of Gibraltar. Aircraft aircraft ranges shrink. The empire is running on one engine. Beat TWOINDA, Britain to India. In our timeline, 10,000 kilometers through Suez, 3 weeks. In this timeline, 16,000 kilometers around the entire continent of Africa, 3 months. Japan enters the war in December 1941 and advances west through Burma. The British Indian Army that must stop it cannot be reinforced from Britain in time. Every battalion, every tank, every crate of ammunition takes 3 months to arrive, if it arrives at all. B8 THREE, TGM East Hilliard, Britain, Canada, Australia, India. Each one still flying a Union Jack. Each one now an island in a sea that Germany controls. The connection lines between them, the supply routes, the reinforcement corridors, the communication lifelines are gone. The British Empire is not conquered. It is simply disconnected, and a disconnected empire cannot fight as one. Britain is not invaded in this timeline. The English Channel holds. The RAF holds. American Lend-Lease keeps arriving across the Atlantic. But Churchill's entire strategy for surviving 1940 and 1941 depended on 3 things. Hold Malta. Hold Egypt. Keep Suez open. Wait for America. All 3 are gone before America enters the war. Without the Mediterranean, there is no North African campaign. Without North Africa, there is no Allied invasion of Italy in 1943. Without Italy, there is no southern pressure on Germany. Without a second front, there is no path to Berlin. Britain can survive. It cannot win. By 1942, the calculation is inescapable. A negotiated peace, not surrender, not occupation. A peace that leaves Hitler in control of Europe, the Mediterranean, and the resources of the Middle East. Britain keeps its islands, loses its empire. The war ends, not with liberation, not with defeat, with the permanent establishment of German dominance over the European continent. 6 kilometers of limestone. That is what it cost. So why didn't this happen? One man, one meeting, one border town most people have never heard of. October 23rd, 1940. Hendaye, France. Hitler's private train meets Franco's private train at the French-Spanish border. Hitler needs one thing from Franco: permission for German forces to cross Spanish territory. Franco says yes, but with conditions. Territorial concessions in North Africa. Massive military and economic aid. Guarantees for Spain's colonial empire. Fuel and food for a population still starving from the Civil War. The meeting lasts 9 hours. Hitler leaves without the agreement he came for. He later tells Mussolini he would rather have 3 or 4 teeth pulled than go through another conversation with Franco. The march order is never signed. Operation Felix is shelved. Gibraltar stays British. In our timeline, that 9-hour conversation is one of the most consequential meetings in modern history. Almost nobody knows it happened. 6 kilometers of rock, 14 kilometers of water, 9 hours of failed negotiation. The difference between the world we live in and a world where Germany won the European War. Geography doesn't just decide battles. Sometimes it decides everything. And the hinge point is almost never where you expect it to be. It's not a battlefield. It's a train car at a border crossing with 2 men arguing over a piece of limestone. Geography is FUBAR. Share this with someone who thinks World War II was decided at D-Day. The most important moment happened 4 years earlier, in a train with no weapons and no armies, just a map and a man who said no.